Think about it for a moment. All those sleepless nights, all that mental energy spent replaying worst-case scenarios in your mind, all the anxiety that's consumed your thoughts day after day, what has it truly accomplished? If you're honest with yourself, the answer might shake you. Absolutely nothing. The bills still came, the challenges still arrived, the uncertainties still loomed. But something else happened too. Something you might not have realized until right now. While you were busy, worrying, you were missing the one thing that could actually transform everything. There comes a moment in every person's spiritual journey, a pivotal awakening, when the soul finally understands that worry is nothing more than noise. It's the mind's desperate attempt to control what it was never meant to control. You've been carrying burdens that were never yours to carry, fighting battles that were already won, and searching for solutions that were already planted within you. Has this ever happened to you? That moment when you're so exhausted from trying to figure everything out, so depleted from strategizing and planning and forcing outcomes, that you simply have no energy left to resist anymore? That's not weakness. That's grace meeting you exactly where you are. Because what most people don't realize is that this exhaustion, this complete depletion of mental control, is actually the doorway. It's the sacred threshold between human effort and divine intervention. When your mind finally surrenders its grip, when it can no longer manufacture another solution or conjure another plan, something extraordinary happens. A voice begins to whisper, not from somewhere far away in the heavens, not from some distant deity observing your struggles from afar, but from within. From that part of you that has always known the truth, the part that has never been afraid, the part that is eternally connected to divine wisdom. Be still, the voice says. Stop worrying. Start trusting. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might completely transform the way you've been approaching every challenge in your life. This isn't about positive thinking or manifesting or any temporary emotional state. This is about understanding a fundamental spiritual truth that Florence Scovel Shinn taught throughout her life, that faith isn't something you do, it's something you remember. It's not about forcing belief. It's about recognizing what has always been true. Right now, in this very moment, that sacred whisper is calling to you. The question is, are you finally ready to listen? Here's the profound truth that changes everything. You're not just one self. You're living as two selves simultaneously, and the battle between them is the source of every anxiety you've ever felt. There's the outer self, the one that wakes up every morning believing it must carry the entire weight of existence on its shoulders. This is the self that scrolls through bank accounts at 3 a.m, that rehearses conversations that haven't happened yet, that calculates and strategizes and tries to predict every possible outcome. This self is terrified because it genuinely believes it's alone in this journey. But then there's the other self, the eternal one, the one that was made in the image of divine intelligence, that knows with absolute certainty that nothing is missing, nothing is broken, and nothing can truly be lost. This self doesn't live in fear, because it remembers something the outer self has forgotten, that you've never walked alone, not for a single moment. Every step you've taken, every decision you've made, every crossroad you've faced, there has been a presence walking beside you. The worry, the anxiety, the sleepless nights, they all emerge from that moment of forgetting, from that split second when you believe the illusion that you must figure it all out by yourself. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. This is where the transformation happens. Not in some distant future when circumstances finally align, but right now, in the shift of awareness. Because when you stop fighting, when you cease the endless mental gymnastics of trying to control outcomes, something miraculous occurs. You enter what Florence Scovel Shinn called the flow of divine order. And in this flow, miracles aren't rare, exceptional events that only happen to special people. They become inevitable. They become the natural response of a universe that is constantly conspiring in your favor. Faith isn't what you thought it was. It's not blind hope or wishful thinking or crossing your fingers and waiting for luck. Faith is the precise alignment between your consciousness and divine intelligence. It's when your inner knowing matches the truth that has always existed, that everything is already working out, that the path is already forming beneath your feet, that the answers you seek are already finding their way to you. The moment you truly understand this, the moment you let go of the illusion of control and step into trust, reality itself begins to reorganize around you. Now I want to go even deeper into this hidden truth about how your inner state is literally programming the world around you. Write in the comments, I choose trust over worry, if this resonates with where you are right now. There's something Scripture has been telling us for thousands of years that modern science is only now beginning to confirm. When the ancient text speaks of faith being the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, it wasn't speaking poetically. It was describing a spiritual technology, a fundamental law of reality that operates whether you understand it or not. Faith isn't hope. Hope says, maybe, possibly, I wish it could happen. Faith says, it already is. Faith is proof in motion, the inner certainty that doesn't wait for circumstances to validate it, because it knows that inner certainty creates the outer form. This is where most people miss the revelation entirely. They think faith is something fragile, something that needs to be protected from doubt or questioning. But real faith is substance. It's evidence. It's the invisible architecture upon which visible reality constructs itself. When you truly grasp this, when you understand that your inner state isn't just reflecting reality, but actively creating it, everything shifts. Your decisions become different. Your reactions transform. Your entire journey takes on a new dimension because you realize you've been holding the blueprint all along. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. Scientists can now measure what spiritual teachers have always known. Your heart, your brain, your entire nervous system is constantly broadcasting electromagnetic signals into the field around you. These aren't metaphorical signals. They're actual, measurable frequencies that extend beyond your physical body and interact with the quantum field of possibility. When your thoughts and your feelings are in harmony, when there's coherence between what you're thinking and what you're feeling, something extraordinary happens. Matter itself begins to organize around that harmony. The circumstances of your life start rearranging themselves to match the frequency you're emitting. This is the hidden mechanism behind every transformation you've ever witnessed. It's not magic, it's law, divine law. When your inner world achieves coherence, when fear stops fragmenting your signal and trust creates a unified frequency, the external world has no choice but to respond. You stop being a victim of circumstances and become the creative force behind them. The impact of this understanding cannot be overstated because it means that every moment you spend in worry, every thought pattern of lack or limitation, isn't just affecting your mood, it's literally programming the field of possibilities around you. But there's something even more powerful happening behind the scenes. Something about how your words and your inner dialogue are shaping reality in ways you never imagined. Type in the comments, I am the creator of my reality, if you're ready to own this truth completely. Every single moment you spend in worry, you're broadcasting a very specific signal into the universe. And that signal says one thing: separation. It says, I am alone in this. I am lacking what I need. I am afraid of what's coming. And here's what most people don't realize. Reality doesn't judge that signal. It doesn't argue with it or try to correct it. Reality is perfectly, flawlessly obedient. It simply mirrors back to you exactly what you're broadcasting. When you emit the frequency of lack, you receive circumstances that confirm lack. When you broadcast fear, you attract situations that justify more fear. It's not punishment. It's simply the law responding to the signal you're transmitting. But watch what happens when you make a different decision. When you shift your inner dialogue from, how will this ever work out, to, I don't know how, but I know God will handle this. In that instant, something profound occurs in your physical body. Your nervous system, which has been in fight or flight mode, begins to soften. Your heart, which has been constricted by anxiety, starts to open. Your breath, which has been shallow and restricted, deepens. And in that physiological shift, you're sending an entirely different signal into the field. You're broadcasting trust. And creation, being perfectly responsive, begins to rearrange itself around that new frequency. This is the science of surrender that Florence Scovel Shinn taught so brilliantly. What you desperately try to hold on to in fear becomes the very thing God cannot help you with. Not because divine intelligence is withholding support, but because your grip is so tight, your control is so forceful, that grace cannot enter. The moment you release it, the moment you genuinely let go and say, "This is beyond me, I'm handing it over," something miraculous happens. What you released in fear, God takes over in love. And suddenly, solutions appear that your worried mind could never have conceived. Doors open that didn't exist 5 minutes ago. People show up with exactly what you need at precisely the right moment. If these kinds of conversations speak to your spirit, if you want more content that explores the intersection of faith, consciousness, and divine order, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. This is a community of people who are choosing trust over worry, faith over fear, and you belong here. Worry is your mind's desperate attempt to control what only grace can guide. It's trying to solve tomorrow's problems using yesterday's limited tools and outdated strategies. This is why worry is so exhausting, because you're literally using your imagination, this divine creative power you were given, against itself. Instead of imagining possibilities and solutions, you're imagining disasters and failures. Instead of creating with your thoughts, you're destroying with them. Your imagination was designed to be a tool of creation, not a weapon of self-sabotage. Every catastrophic scenario you replay in your mind is misusing this sacred gift. The transformation happens when you understand that surrender isn't weakness. It's the highest form of intelligence. It's recognizing that there's a wisdom operating behind the scenes of your life that sees the entire chessboard while you're focused on one piece. Drop a comment saying, "I surrender to divine wisdom," if this revelation is landing in your spirit right now. Think about the power you hold in your imagination right now. Every single human being has been given this extraordinary gift, the ability to see what doesn't yet exist in physical form. Your imagination is a divine tool, a creative force that was placed within you for one purpose: to build, to design, to bring forth new realities. But somewhere along the journey, most people learn to use this sacred gift in reverse. Instead of imagining their destiny, they imagine disaster. Instead of visualizing breakthrough, they rehearse breakdown. They take this magnificent creative power and turn it into a torture device, playing worst-case scenarios on repeat until anxiety becomes their default state. Every time you mentally rehearse what could go wrong, the conversation that might turn sour, the opportunity that might fall through, the relationship that might fail, you're not preparing yourself. You're programming yourself. You're taking the very tool that was meant to shape your future and using it to cement your fears. You're forming pictures of catastrophe instead of pictures of destiny. And here's the profound truth that changes everything. You can shift this in an instant. Right now, this very moment. Because the same imagination that has been creating fear can just as easily create faith. This is where the real transformation occurs. Not in changing your circumstances first, but in changing what you're imagining about those circumstances. When you make the decision to redirect your imagination from disaster to possibility, from lack to abundance, from fear to trust, something clicks into place in the spiritual realm. Florence Scovel Shinn described it perfectly. You turn the key in the lock of heaven. And what was delayed, what seemed stuck, what appeared impossible, suddenly begins to unfold. The divine never asked you to understand the entire blueprint. God never demanded that you figure out every step before taking the first one. The only requirement has ever been trust. Trust that there's an intelligence far greater than your worried mind, orchestrating events behind the scenes. Trust that timing you don't understand is still perfect timing. Trust that delays aren't denials, but divine appointments being arranged. The moment you stop interrupting the process with worry, the moment you cease injecting fear into every possibility, divine order can finally move freely through your life. This is the hidden mechanism that determines whether you experience struggle or flow. When you're constantly worried, constantly trying to control, constantly replaying negative scenarios, you're creating interference. You're blocking the very pathways through which solutions are trying to reach you. Your worry isn't protecting you. It's interrupting the divine download that's been trying to come through all along. But when you consciously choose to imagine with trust, when you see the outcome you desire as already done, when you feel the relief of resolution before the evidence appears, you remove the interference, you clear the channel. And what was waiting to manifest suddenly has a clear path to you. The impact of this shift cannot be overstated because it means you're no longer at the mercy of external conditions. You're operating from a place of creative authority, understanding that your inner images shape outer reality far more than outer reality should shape your inner images. Write, "I imagine," with faith in the comments if you're ready to reclaim this power right now. There's profound wisdom in watching a farmer at work. After planting seeds in the ground, he doesn't return the next morning to dig them up and check if they're growing. He doesn't stand over the soil anxiously wondering if anything is happening beneath the surface. He doesn't question whether the process is working just because he can't see immediate evidence. He simply trusts. He knows that in the darkness of the earth, in the unseen realm beneath his feet, a miraculous transformation is taking place. The seed is breaking open, roots are forming, life is stirring. And his trust in that invisible process is what allows the harvest to come. Your faith is meant to operate exactly the same way. When you plant a desire, when you hold a vision, when you release a prayer into the universe, something begins working immediately in the unseen realm. But most people can't handle not seeing instant proof. They dig up their seeds with doubt. They interrupt the process with worry. They speak as if lack is the ultimate reality, describing their problems as permanent, their challenges as insurmountable, their situation as hopeless. Every time you speak lack, every time you declare, "I don't have enough," or "It's never going to happen," or "I'm always struggling," you're watering weeds instead of watering seeds. The transformation in your life begins when you change what you're declaring. Instead of narrating your fears, start affirming divine order. Even when you can't see how it will work out, especially when the path isn't clear, say quietly within yourself, "God is handling this. I rest in His wisdom." That statement isn't denial of your circumstances. It's alignment with a truth that supersedes circumstances. It's choosing to trust the intelligence that orchestrates galaxies over the limited perspective that only sees obstacles. This brings us to one of the most misunderstood concepts on the spiritual journey: the difference between surrender and giving up. Most people think surrender means defeat, waving a white flag, accepting that nothing will ever change. But that's not surrender. That's resignation. True surrender is something entirely different. Surrender is giving over, not giving up. It's taking your limited perception, the small, worried view that can only see 3 steps ahead, and placing it into the hands of limitless intelligence that sees the entire journey from beginning to end. When you truly surrender, you're saying, "Father, I trust you more than I trust my fear. I trust your timing more than my impatience. I trust your path more than my plans." This isn't passive. This is powerful. Because worry constantly asks, what if I fail? What if it doesn't work? What if I lose everything? Worry operates from a mindset of scarcity and catastrophe. But faith speaks a completely different language. Faith says, even if I stumble, even if I fall, even if the path takes an unexpected turn, God will lift me higher than where I started. Faith understands that there are no mistakes in divine order, only redirections towards something better than you originally envisioned. The impact of understanding this distinction changes everything about how you move through challenges. You stop seeing obstacles as evidence that you're on the wrong path and start seeing them as part of the curriculum. You stop interpreting delay as denial and start recognizing it as preparation. Behind the scenes, while you're learning to trust instead of control, divine intelligence is arranging connections, aligning timing, preparing people and circumstances that will blow your mind when they finally converge. Type, "I trust the process," in the comments if you're choosing surrender over struggle today. There's a teaching that cuts straight through all spiritual confusion. Words spoken over 2,000 years ago that remain just as revolutionary today. Jesus said something that most people gloss over without understanding its profound implication. Do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will wear. Your Father knows what you need before you ask. Read that again, slowly. Before you ask, before you even formulate the prayer, before you identify the need, there's an intelligence that already sees it, already knows it, and is already moving to provide it. When you truly absorb this revelation, you realize that worry isn't just unproductive, it's actually an insult to divine nature. Every moment you spend anxious about provision, about protection, about your future, you're essentially saying, "I don't believe you're paying attention. I don't trust that you care. I doubt your ability to handle this." Worry is doubt in motion. It's questioning whether the force that orchestrates solar systems and synchronizes seasons can handle your specific situation. But trust, genuine, deep trust, is alignment with the promise that has been given since the beginning. And when you align with that promise, when you truly rest in the knowing that you are seen, known, and provided for, reality responds in ways that defy logic. Doors that shouldn't open swing wide. Opportunities that made no sense suddenly make perfect sense. Resources appear from directions you never even considered. People you needed to meet cross your path at precisely the right moment. This isn't luck. This isn't coincidence. This is what happens when you stop blocking divine flow with anxiety and start allowing it with trust. The transformation occurs, not in your circumstances first, but in your consciousness. And your consciousness shifts based on one thing most people completely overlook: the conversation you're having with yourself. Right now, even as you're listening to this, there's a dialogue happening inside your mind. It never stops. From the moment you wake until you fall asleep, you're talking to yourself, narrating your experience, interpreting events, making assessments, forming judgments. And here's what changes everything. This inner conversation, this unseen dialogue, is the programming language of your reality. It's not just commentary on your life, it's the creative force behind your life. Every word you speak internally is a command being sent into the field of possibility. If your inner speech is saturated with fear, if your mental narrative constantly says, "This won't work, I can't do this, nothing ever works out for me, I'm not enough, it's too hard," then your outer world has no choice but to echo that frequency back to you. Your external circumstances become the mirror of your internal dialogue. But, and this is where your power lies, if you consciously shift your inner speech to faith, if your mental narrative becomes, "God is handling this, I am guided, the right doors are opening, I am provided for, everything is working in my favor," your outer world must harmonize with that new frequency. This isn't positive thinking or affirmations you don't believe. This is understanding the mechanics of consciousness itself. Behind the scenes of your visible life, there's an invisible realm where all outcomes exist as possibilities waiting to be called forth. Your inner dialogue is the summoning mechanism. Every thought you think habitually, every story you tell yourself repeatedly is selecting which possibility moves from the invisible to the visible. Most people are unconsciously selecting struggle, lack, and limitation simply because their inner dialogue has been programmed by past disappointments and current circumstances. But you can reprogram it right now, this moment. Not by forcing false positivity, but by choosing to align your inner speech with divine truth rather than temporary conditions. Leave a comment saying, "My inner dialogue creates my outer reality," if this revelation is shifting something in you right now. Florence Scovel Shinn understood something that most spiritual teachers of her time completely missed. She recognized that every single word you speak, internally, not just out loud, but in the privacy of your own mind, is a creative force. Every assumption you make, every conclusion you draw, every interpretation you give to an event is a seed being planted in the fertile soil of your subconscious mind. And here's what makes this so powerful and so crucial to understand. Your subconscious never sleeps. While you're going about your day, while you're working or eating or scrolling, while you're even sleeping at night, your subconscious is awake, active, and bringing forth whatever seeds you've been nurturing. If this message landed in your heart, if something shifted while you were listening, show some love by hitting that like button. It's a simple way to let me know this content is serving you, and it helps others find their way here too. This is why the quality of your inner dialogue matters so profoundly. If you're constantly planting seeds of, "I'll never have enough," or "nobody respects me," or "I always struggle," your subconscious takes those seeds seriously. It doesn't judge them. It doesn't question whether they're true or beneficial. It simply says, "You've given me a seed, and my job is to grow it." And grow it, it does. Your circumstances begin reflecting those assumptions back to you with remarkable accuracy. But the beautiful revelation in this truth is that you can change the seeds you're planting at any moment. The instant your mind starts wandering toward anxiety, toward worst-case scenarios, toward that familiar spiral of worry, you have the power to gently redirect it, not with force, not by fighting the thoughts, but by consciously choosing to nurture different seeds, seeds of possibility, seeds of trust, seeds of divine alignment. This is where the transformation in your mindset becomes the transformation in your life. Most people are waiting for their circumstances to change so they can feel better. But the spiritual law works in reverse. You shift your inner assumptions, you plant different seeds, and then your circumstances reorganize themselves to match your new inner reality. The impact of this understanding is life-altering because it means you're not trapped by current conditions. You're simply experiencing the harvest of past seeds, and you can plant new ones right now that will produce a completely different harvest. So let me ask you questions that will redirect the entire trajectory of your journey. What if everything actually goes right? What if this thing that looks like a setback is actually a setup for something far better than you imagined? What if this delay isn't rejection, but protection from something that wasn't meant for you? What if this pain you're experiencing right now is preparation, strengthening you for a blessing so big that your current version couldn't handle it? These aren't just optimistic questions designed to make you feel better temporarily. These are alignment questions. They're redirecting your inner dialogue from the default programming of fear to the divine vision that already exists for you. You're not lying to yourself when you ask these questions. You're not engaging in denial or toxic positivity. You're choosing to align with the vision that God already holds for you, a vision of wholeness, not brokenness, success, not failure, healing, not perpetual pain, peace, not constant anxiety. That vision existed before you were born. It's the blueprint of your highest potential. And every time you redirect your inner speech toward that vision, instead of toward fear, you're not creating something new. You're remembering something true. You're tuning into a frequency that's been broadcasting all along, waiting for you to stop listening to the noise of worry and start receiving the signal of divine promise. Behind the scenes of your visible struggles, there's an invisible perfection unfolding. Write, "I align with divine vision," in the comments if you're ready to shift from fear-based questions to faith-based ones. There's a pattern in every miracle Jesus performed that most people completely miss. Before the bread multiplied to feed thousands, before he spoke peace to the storm, before he called Lazarus from the tomb, he did something that defies human logic. He gave thanks. Not after the miracle manifested, not when the evidence appeared. Before. He thanked the Father while the crowd was still hungry, while the storm was still raging, while the man was still dead. This wasn't premature celebration or wishful thinking. This was Jesus demonstrating a spiritual law that unlocks everything. Gratitude isn't your reaction to receiving the blessing. Gratitude is the activation of the blessing. Most people have this completely backward. They say, I'll be grateful when I get the job, when the money comes, when the relationship works out, when my health improves. But that's not how the creative process works. That's not the language heaven responds to. Gratitude before the evidence is the signal that says it is already done in the invisible realm, and I'm simply waiting for the physical manifestation to catch up. When you thank God before you see the breakthrough, you're speaking the language of completion. You're operating from the end instead of from the middle of the struggle. And in that shift, something powerful happens in the quantum field of possibility. What was waiting in potential form begins moving into material form. This is where your entire journey transforms from striving to receiving. Because the moment you stop fighting, the moment you cease pushing and forcing and trying to make things happen through sheer willpower, your energy returns to stillness. And it's in that stillness, in that surrender, that divine intelligence can finally move through your life without interference. Think about a river for a moment. When you try to push against the current, when you resist the natural flow, what happens? You create turbulence. You exhaust yourself. You make no real progress. You're fighting a force far greater than your individual effort. But when you stop resisting, when you turn and flow with the river instead of against it, suddenly you're moving effortlessly. The same current that was your enemy becomes your ally, carrying you toward the ocean without struggle. Your life operates by the same principle. There's a divine current flowing through every circumstance, every challenge, every delay you're experiencing right now. You can either resist it with worry, creating turbulence and exhaustion in your soul, or you can trust it, allowing yourself to be carried by a wisdom that sees further than you can see. Trust is that flow. It's not passive. It's not giving up control because you're weak. It's releasing control because you recognize there's an intelligence orchestrating your life that is infinitely more capable than your worried mind could ever be. Behind the scenes of what you're seeing right now, there's a current moving you toward something you haven't even imagined yet. Every decision you've made, every door that closed, every person who left, every opportunity that didn't work out, all of it is part of the current guiding you to where you're meant to be. But you'll only feel this flow when you stop resisting it with anxiety. You'll only move with grace when you stop interrupting divine timing with impatience. The impact of this shift in perspective cannot be overstated because it changes you from someone who's constantly exhausted by life to someone who's consistently supported by it. Now I want to go even deeper into how this state of flow completely rewrites what's possible for you, how stillness becomes the most powerful form of action you could ever take. Type, I flow with divine current in the comments if this understanding is landing in your spirit. There's something incredibly liberating that happens the moment you truly release the burden of control. And I mean truly release it. Not just say the words, but feel it drop from your shoulders like a weight you've been carrying for years. In that moment of genuine surrender, you create space for God to fulfill what your personal effort, no matter how determined or strategic, never could. Because here's the hidden truth that changes everything about how you approach your journey. His ways are not your ways. They're not slightly better or marginally more effective. They're higher. They operate on a completely different level of intelligence. They're exact, precise, perfectly timed, and flawlessly orchestrated. Every single time you insist on doing it alone, every moment you spend trying to figure it all out through your limited human perspective, you're actually delaying the miracle that was already arranged for you. Not because God is punishing your independence, but because your interference disrupts the divine orchestration. It's like trying to conduct a symphony while the actual conductor is already leading. You just create chaos where there was supposed to be harmony. The transformation occurs when you step back and let the true conductor lead, when you trust that the intelligence guiding galaxies can certainly guide your specific situation. This brings us to one of the most powerful verses in all of Scripture, words that sound simple but contain revolutionary wisdom. Be still and know that I am God. Read that instruction carefully. It doesn't say, do more and know that I am God. It doesn't say, work harder, strategize, better, figure it out faster. It says, be still. In a culture that glorifies hustle and grind, that measures worth by productivity and constant motion, stillness sounds like weakness. It sounds like giving up, like passivity, like you're not really committed to your breakthrough. But that could not be further from the truth. Stillness is command. It's the most powerful posture you can take because it's the moment your individual consciousness stops fighting and unites with divine order. And when that union happens, when you stop creating interference with worry and doubt and frantic effort, creation itself responds to your stillness. This is what Florence Scovel Shinn meant when she taught about the power of non-resistance. You're not being passive. You're being receptive. You're not doing nothing. You're allowing everything. There's a massive difference between those two states. Faith gives you authority, but it's an authority that operates completely differently than worldly power. It moves you from constant reaction to conscious creation, from panic to presence, from, oh no, what do I do, to, I know who holds this. When you're reacting, you're being pushed around by circumstances, letting external events dictate your internal state. But when you operate from faith-filled stillness, you stop reacting to what's happening around you and start creating from what's happening within you. Your presence becomes more powerful than any external pressure because your presence is connected to divine presence. Behind the scenes, in the invisible realm where all true creation begins, your stillness is doing more than your striving ever could. Your trust is moving mountains that your effort was only wearing you out trying to climb. The impact of understanding this principle transforms not just your results, but your entire experience of life. You stop living exhausted and start living empowered. Put, stillness is my strength, in the comments if you're ready to embrace this. Radical shift. Once you truly understand what we've been talking about, something shifts in how you move through the world. You begin to act from peace, not for it. That's a critical distinction most people miss entirely. Acting for peace means you're chasing it, trying to achieve it, working toward it as something external that you don't yet possess. But acting from peace means you've claimed it as your current state, your present reality, your starting point rather than your destination. And when you operate from that place, everything changes about how you engage with challenges. You stop chasing outcomes like they're running away from you. You stop begging circumstances to shift. Instead, you start commanding reality with calm conviction, understanding that you have authority over your experience. Look at how Jesus handled the storm. The disciples were panicking, convinced they were going to die, completely overwhelmed by the external chaos. But Jesus didn't panic with them. He didn't plead with the storm. He didn't beg the waves to calm down or hope the wind would eventually stop. He instructed it with 3 words, peace, be still, and it obeyed. That wasn't magic. That was authority. That was a man who understood his connection to divine power and spoke from that awareness rather than from fear. Here's the revelation that will transform your entire journey. That same authority lives within you right now. It's not something you have to earn or achieve or become spiritual enough to access. It's already there, waiting for your remembrance, waiting for you to stop identifying with the panicked disciples and start identifying with the one who commands the storm. The transformation happens when you remember who you are, when you reconnect with your true nature as the image of the Creator. And once you remember, your words carry different weight. Your presence shifts the atmosphere. Your decisions create reality rather than react to it. To create as God creates, you must learn to think as God thinks, in finished form. This is the language of heaven, and it's completely foreign to how most people operate. Human thinking says, I hope it works out, maybe if I try hard enough, possibly if circumstances align. But divine thinking operates from completion. God never says, I hope. God says, I am. That's the language of creation, the frequency that calls things into existence. When God wanted light, He didn't say, I hope there will be light. Eventually, He said, let there be light, and there was light. Instant manifestation through the authority of the spoken word rooted in present tense being. You have access to that same creative language right now. Every time you say, I am, you're speaking the name of God. You're invoking creative power. So what are you saying after those two words? Are you saying, I am struggling, I am confused, I am lacking, I am worried? Because if so, you're using the most powerful creative phrase in existence to cement the very conditions you want to escape. But when you shift your language to match divine truth, when you say, I am at peace, I am guided, I am provided for, I am the living expression of divine order, you're not lying to yourself or denying reality. You're speaking from a higher reality that supersedes temporary circumstances. You're aligning your creative power with divine vision instead of with present limitation. The impact of this linguistic shift cannot be overstated. Your subconscious mind, the universe itself, responds to the authority in your words. Behind the scenes of your visible life, forces begin reorganizing to match the frequency you're broadcasting through your I am statements. Write, I am divinely guided in the comments if you're ready to speak with the authority that's already yours. Once you make that fundamental choice, trust over worry, something remarkable begins happening in your external reality. It doesn't happen overnight in most cases, but it happens with certainty. Your outer world starts matching your inner calm. The things that once required immense struggle, the doors you were pushing against with all your strength, suddenly begin to flow open. Opportunities that seemed completely impossible start becoming inevitable. And here's why. The universe isn't resisting you anymore because you've stopped resisting it. Reality is a mirror, not a judge. It doesn't decide whether you're worthy or not. It simply reflects back the frequency you're broadcasting. When you were broadcasting worry, resistance, and fear, you received circumstances that matched that energy. But now that you've shifted into trust and inner peace, the mirror is reflecting something entirely different. This is the quiet miracle that most people never witness because they give up right before the shift occurs. They spend years fighting against their circumstances, exhausting themselves trying to force outcomes. And then they abandon the journey just before the breakthrough was about to manifest. But you're different. You're understanding something profound right now, that the transformation doesn't require you to change your entire life. It requires you to change your inner state, and your life will reorganize itself accordingly. And here's the revelation that will set you free from every fear you've been carrying. Everything that has ever frightened you was never real power. It was only misperception. Think about that carefully. The thing you're worried about right now, the situation that keeps you up at night, the circumstance that feels overwhelming, it only has the power you're giving it through your perception. Fear doesn't dissolve because circumstances magically change and suddenly everything is perfect. Fear dissolves because you change, because your consciousness shifts from seeing yourself as a victim of conditions to recognizing yourself as the creative force behind conditions. When the light of faith enters your awareness, it dispels the shadows of uncertainty, the same way turning on a lamp dispels darkness in a room. The darkness wasn't a real substance you had to fight or remove. It was simply the absence of light. And the moment light appears, darkness disappears automatically. Your faith works exactly the same way. The moment you genuinely trust, the moment you align with divine order, fear cannot coexist with that frequency. It's not that you have to battle your fear or overcome it through willpower. You simply have to let faith be present, and fear naturally dissolves. This is where your entire relationship with life transforms. You stop trying to survive each day, bracing yourself for the next disaster, constantly in defense mode. Instead, you start creating deliberately, Understanding that you're not at the mercy of random circumstances, but at the center of a responsive universe. Behind the scenes of what you're currently experiencing, there's an intelligence that's waiting for your clarity, waiting for your trust, waiting for you to stop interfering so it can deliver what's already been prepared for you. The impact of this shift in perception is total. It changes not just isolated areas of your life, but the entire foundation of how you exist. You begin moving through challenges with a different energy, making decisions from a place of power rather than panic, speaking with authority you didn't know you possessed. Drop. Faith dissolves my fear in the comments if you're feeling this shift happening in your consciousness right now. There comes a moment in your spiritual evolution when you cross a threshold, and on the other side of that threshold, certain questions simply stop existing in your consciousness. You'll never again find yourself asking, "Will God help me?" Because that question comes from a place of separation, from believing that divine assistance is conditional or uncertain. But once you truly understand what we've been exploring, once you experience even a glimpse of this truth, not believe, not hope, but know that He already is helping. Right now, in this moment, in ways you can see and in ways that remain invisible. You stop begging for signs because suddenly you start seeing them everywhere. And I mean everywhere. The right person appears at precisely the right time with exactly the information you needed. The right word reaches you when you needed it most, sometimes through a stranger, sometimes through a song, sometimes through something as simple as a sentence you overhear. That peace that makes no logical sense given your circumstances, it comes without explanation because it's not born from external conditions. It's born from internal connection. These aren't coincidences. This is the evidence of eternal partnership, the proof that you're being guided every single step of your journey. Florence Scovel Shinn called these synchronicities divine selection, moments when the universe demonstrates that you're not operating alone, that there's an intelligence orchestrating details you could never orchestrate yourself. The transformation in your life isn't that these signs suddenly start appearing. They were always there. The transformation is that you finally start recognizing them because your consciousness has shifted from doubt to awareness, from fear to trust. Your perception opens, and what was invisible becomes obvious. And here's the message that will shift everything about how you're viewing your current situation. God is telling you today to stop worrying, not because He's indifferent to your struggle, not because He doesn't see what you're going through, but because He has already solved it. Read that again. Already solved. Not will solve eventually if you prove yourself worthy. Not might solve if circumstances align. Already solved. The solution exists right now in the spiritual realm, in the invisible dimension where all things are first formed before they appear in material reality. You can't see it yet with your physical eyes, and that's where most people lose faith. They look at their bank account, their relationship status, their health situation, their career circumstances, and they think, nothing has changed, so nothing is happening. But that's not how divine order works. The outer world is always playing catch-up to the inner world. There's a lag time between spiritual formation and physical manifestation. In spirit, in the realm of consciousness, and divine intelligence, your breakthrough is already complete. The solution is already in motion. The answer is already on its way. The outer just hasn't caught up yet. This is why worry is pointless. You're not waiting for God to do something. You're waiting for what God has already done to become visible in your experience. Behind the scenes, in dimensions you cannot yet perceive, everything you've been asking for has already been arranged. Every resource, every connection, every opportunity, it's all being orchestrated with precision you couldn't achieve if you tried for 1,000 years. Now I want you to understand something even more profound about how this invisible work becomes visible in your life, how the spiritual realm materializes into your physical experience. Comment, "It is already done," if this truth is resonating in your spirit right now. Right now, in this very moment, You're standing in a sacred space that most people never recognize. It's the hallway, between prayer and proof. You've asked, you've believed, you've aligned your consciousness with what you desire, and now you're in that in-between space where the spiritual realm has already responded, but the physical realm hasn't yet reflected it. This hallway can feel uncomfortable, uncertain, even lonely. But here's what you need to understand. This is the testing ground of your faith, not because God is testing you to see if you're worthy, but because this is where you discover whether you trust what you cannot yet see. Most people turn back in the hallway. They get so close to breakthrough, standing right outside the door that's about to open, and fear convinces them to retreat. Fear whispers, "It's taking too long. Nothing is happening. You were wrong to believe. You should give up now and save yourself the disappointment." And they listen. They turn around and walk back into the familiar territory of worry and doubt, never knowing that they were inches away from everything they'd been praying for. Don't let that be your story. Don't let fear turn you back when the door is about to swing open. This is the moment to release the weight you were never meant to carry. Every problem you're trying to solve on your own, every fear you're mentally wrestling with, every unanswered question keeping you up at night, hand it over. Not partially, not with one foot still in control mode, but completely. Give it to the divine intelligence that already knows the solution. That's already working on your behalf, that never needed your worry to begin with. The transformation happens when you genuinely release your grip. And here's the key that unlocks everything. Conviction matters infinitely more than repetition. You can repeat affirmations 10,000 times, but if you don't actually believe what you're saying, if there's no conviction behind the words, they're just empty sounds. The universe doesn't count how many times you prayed or how often you declared something. It responds to the depth of your conviction. When fear arises, and it will arise, that's normal. You don't need to battle it with 100 different spiritual techniques. You need one sentence spoken with complete conviction. I have already given this to God. That single sentence, when you truly mean it, when there's unwavering certainty behind it, carries more power than 1,000 panicked prayers. Because in that statement, you're declaring completion. You're affirming that the transaction has occurred, that the burden has transferred, that you're no longer carrying what was never yours to carry. And when you speak with that level of conviction, when every cell in your body agrees with what your mouth is saying, heaven moves. Not eventually, not someday, immediately. The spiritual machinery shifts into motion because you've given it permission through your total surrender. Behind the scenes of your visible struggle, invisible forces are responding to your conviction right now. The impact of this understanding is profound because it means you're not powerless in the waiting. Your faith is actively creating outcomes even when you can't see them forming yet. Leave a comment saying, "My conviction moves heaven," if you're claiming this truth as your own right now. Let me speak directly to your heart right now, because this is the truth you need to hear more than anything else. You are not alone. You have never been alone. Not in your darkest moment, not in your most confused decision, not in that season when everyone else walked away and you thought you'd been abandoned by heaven itself. The same power that sets stars in their exact positions, that orchestrates the rotation of planets and the rhythm of seasons, that intelligence is watching over every single detail of your life. Every single detail. Nothing is too small for his attention. That worry you think is too trivial to bother God with, he's already attending to it. That detail you think doesn't matter in the grand scheme, he's already orchestrating it. And nothing is too great for his authority. That mountain you think is too massive to move, that situation you believe is too complex to resolve, that problem you've convinced yourself is beyond help, none of it exceeds his capacity. You are safe, not because your circumstances are perfect, but because you're held by a power that is. You are guided, not by your own limited understanding, but by infinite wisdom. You are loved, not because you earned it, or deserve it, but because love is the very nature of the source you came from. Most people go through life feeling like they're navigating alone, making decisions in isolation, carrying burdens that were never meant for one person to bear. But that feeling of aloneness is the greatest illusion you could ever believe. It's the lie that keeps you trapped in anxiety and fear. The moment you recognize that you've never been alone, that every step has been accompanied by divine presence, everything about your journey transforms. You stop making decisions from desperation and start making them from alignment. You stop carrying weight that doesn't belong to you. And here's where this truth becomes even more profound. When Scripture says, "Be still and know that I am God," pay attention to the tense of that statement. Not, "I was God in ancient times." Not, "I will be God someday in the future." I am. Present tense. Eternal present. The I am that spoke those words thousands of years ago is the same I am that exists in this exact moment. And here's the revelation that changes everything. That I am doesn't just exist somewhere in the heavens watching you from a distance. That I am lives in you right now. It breathes your breath. Think about that. You're not breathing on your own. The same life force that animates all creation is breathing through you. It thinks your thoughts. The consciousness you're experiencing right now isn't separate from divine consciousness. It's an expression of it. It beats your heart. The rhythm in your chest isn't just biology. It's divine intelligence maintaining your existence without you having to think about it. You are not separate from the I am. You are its expression. You are how God experiences this particular moment, this particular perspective, this particular journey. When you truly grasp this, when it moves from concept to conviction, you realize that asking, "Will God help me?" is like your hand asking if your body will help it. You're not asking an external entity for assistance. You're remembering that you're already connected to, already part of, already one with the source of all help. Behind the scenes of your individual identity, there's an eternal identity that has never been afraid, never been lacking, never been lost. Type, "I am one with divine presence." If this truth is awakening something deep within you, take a moment right now and become aware of your breathing. Just notice it. You're inhaling and exhaling without thinking about it, without consciously directing it. This simple act that keeps you alive every single second is actually something sacred, something holy. Each breath is a bridge between heaven and earth, between the seen and the unseen realms. The same presence that shaped galaxies, that spoke light into existence, that formed mountains and oceans, that presence is moving through your lungs right this moment. You're not just breathing air. You're breathing divine intelligence into physical form. Every inhale carries creation. You're literally drawing in life force, possibility, potential. And every exhale releases control. You're letting go, surrendering, trusting that the next breath will come without you having to force it. This is the rhythm of faith made physical. Breathing in trust, breathing out worry, breathing in divine provision, breathing out human striving. Your body already knows how to live in this rhythm of receiving and releasing. Your mind just needs to remember what your body has always known. When you align your consciousness with your breath, when you recognize each inhale and exhale as a sacred exchange with the divine, something shifts in your entire being. You stop living in your head, trapped in anxious thoughts about the future or regrets about the past. You come into the present moment, which is the only moment where divine power can actually flow through you. The transformation happens not through great effort, but through simple awareness, recognizing that life is breathing you, not that you're breathing life. And here's what you need to understand about your journey. The plan is already written, not in some distant heaven where you can't access it, but in the very fabric of your destiny. Before you were born, before you took your first breath, the blueprint existed. The provision you're worried about already exists. Not will exist if you do everything right. Already exists. The resources, the opportunities, the Connections, the solutions. They're already in the spiritual realm, waiting to materialize in your experience. The path is already forming beneath your feet, even when you can't see where the next step leads. All you're being asked to do is trust, but not surface-level trust that disappears the moment circumstances look difficult. Trust so deep that fear loses its language, can't even form words in your consciousness anymore. Trust so full that silence becomes enough. You don't need constant confirmation or reassurance because, trust so absolute that your stillness itself becomes prayer, that your peace becomes your statement of faith, that your calm in the storm becomes your testimony to divine order. This is where most people struggle because they're waiting for certainty before they trust. They want to see the entire path before they take the first step. They want proof before they believe. But that's not how faith works. That's not how creation responds. The universe doesn't reward those who need to see before they believe. It rewards those who believe before they see, who trust before evidence appears, who walk in certainty while still in the hallway. Behind the scenes of your visible circumstances, there's an invisible orchestration happening with precision you cannot comprehend. Every delay has been positioning. Every closed door has been protection. Every moment of waiting has been preparation for what's about to unfold. Comment: I trust the invisible. Path: if you're ready to walk forward even when you can't see where you're going. Once you shift into genuine trust, something fascinating begins happening in your experience. Trust becomes a magnet for miracles. Not metaphorically, but literally. Your frequency changes, your vibration shifts, and suddenly you're attracting circumstances and connections that weren't accessible when you were operating from fear and worry. Doors start opening in the most unexpected places, opportunities you never even thought to look for, possibilities you didn't know existed. People who are meant to find you suddenly appear, often through what seems like random chance, but is actually divine orchestration responding to your trust. Opportunities that were once hidden, that you couldn't see because your vision was clouded by anxiety, now call your name. They seek you out. You stop chasing and start being found. And once you're in this flow, once you're living from trust rather than worry, you begin seeing divine order everywhere, in the timing that makes no logical sense but turns out to be perfect, in the way things fall apart only to come together better than you imagined, in the peace that fills you even when circumstances haven't changed yet. You can't explain it with logic, but you feel it in your spirit. You're being guided, orchestrated, held. Florence Scovel Shinn taught this principle throughout her work, that your inner state of consciousness creates your outer state of circumstances. When you trust, you're not just feeling better emotionally, you're actually changing the magnetic field around your life, drawing toward you the very things that match your new frequency. The transformation happens not because you're doing more, but because you're being different. Your presence itself becomes the invitation for miracles. And here's the revelation that will completely change how you view everything that's happened to you. Every delay you've experienced was instruction. Every single one. The job that didn't work out, the relationship that ended, the opportunity that fell through, the timing that seemed wrong. It was all instruction, teaching you something essential for where you're going. Every challenge was training, strengthening capacities you're going to need for what's ahead. Every unanswered prayer was protection, shielding you from something that looked good but would have derailed your destiny. God never left. Not during the darkest season, not in the most confusing moment, not when you felt completely abandoned. You simply had to slow down enough, become still enough, quiet the noise enough to feel him moving beneath everything. Beneath the chaos, beneath the disappointment, beneath the uncertainty, there was always a current of divine intelligence guiding you toward your highest good. But you couldn't feel it while you were frantically trying to control outcomes, while you were drowning in worry, while your mind was so loud with fear that the gentle whisper of guidance couldn't get through. The impact of understanding this transforms your entire relationship with your past. You stop seeing delays as failures and start recognizing them as perfectly timed redirections. You stop interpreting closed doors as rejection and start seeing them as divine protection. Every moment that felt like nothing was happening was actually everything happening in the invisible realm, preparing you, positioning you, perfecting the timing, so that when the doctor finally opens, you're ready to walk through it. Behind the scenes of your journey, there's been a masterful orchestration that you're only now beginning to see. Drop "every delay was divine protection" in the comments if this perspective is healing something in your past right now. There's a shift that needs to happen in how you approach your spiritual journey, and it's radical. You need to stop asking for signs and start living as the sign. Stop waiting for external validation that you're on the right path and become the validation yourself. Stop doubting whether God hears you and recognize a truth that will transform everything. You have never, not for one single moment, spoken outside His presence. Every word you've uttered, every thought you've had, every silent prayer whispered in desperation at 3 a.m, all of it has been heard, received, registered. But here's where it gets even more profound. Every thought is prayer, not just the formal prayers you speak with. Your eyes closed and hands folded. Every single thought you think is communication with the creative force of the universe. Every feeling is creation. The emotions you're experiencing right now are literally shaping your future reality, calling forth circumstances that match their frequency. Every act of trust rewrites reality. Each time you choose faith over fear, each moment you decide to trust instead of worry, you're not just feeling better. You're literally restructuring the fabric of your experience. You are the living sign of divine order. Your life is the evidence. Your transformation is the testimony. This is what Florence Scovel Shinn meant when she taught about becoming the answer rather than seeking the answer. Most people are looking outside themselves for confirmation, for proof, for someone or something to validate their path. But the validation comes from within. The sign is you. Your peace in chaos is the sign. Your faith in delay is the sign. Your trust when nothing makes sense is the sign. When you shift into this awareness, you stop being a beggar asking the universe for scraps and become a creator consciously shaping reality. And this brings us to one of the most powerful statements in all of Scripture. According to your faith, be it unto you. Read those words carefully, because they contain a mechanism that determines your entire experience, according to your faith, not according to your circumstances, not according to your past, not according to what other people believe about you, according to your faith. Whatever level of faith you're operating from, that's the level of reality you'll experience. This isn't punishment for weak faith. It's simply how the creative law works. But here's what most people misunderstand about faith. They think faith is hoping God will do something. I have faith that God will heal me. I have faith that God will provide. I have faith that God will open a door. That's not faith. That's hope dressed in religious language. Real faith isn't hoping God will. Real faith is knowing God has. Present perfect tense. Already done. Already complete. Faith isn't waiting for proof to arrive in the future. Faith is living from completion right now in this present moment, regardless of what your circumstances currently look like. When you truly live from completion, when you operate as if your desire has already been fulfilled in the spiritual realm, and you're simply waiting for the physical manifestation to catch up, everything changes. Heaven stops being some distant reward you're trying to earn or some future destination you're trying to reach. Heaven becomes awareness. It becomes the recognition that divine order is operating right now, that you are already blessed, already provided for, already held, already complete. The impact of this shift is total, because you're no longer living from lack, trying to get to abundance. You're living from abundance and watching it materialize around you. Now I want to show you exactly how this principle operates in practical terms. How living from completion creates circumstances rather than waiting for circumstances to create feelings. Leave "I live from completion" in the comments if this understanding is clicking into place for you. You were never designed to navigate this life alone, carrying the full weight of existence on your shoulders. That was never the blueprint. You were created to walk in partnership with the infinite, to be a co-creator with divine intelligence. This means you speak and watch creation respond. Not sometimes. Not only when you're spiritual enough or have prayed long enough. Always. Your words carry creative authority because they're backed by the same power that formed worlds. You imagine something and watch form begin to appear around that image. You trust deeply and watch life rearrange itself with precision you could never orchestrate through human effort alone. This partnership is the hidden truth behind every spiritual teaching, the secret mechanism that makes transformation possible. You bring the consciousness, the imagination, the faith. Divine intelligence brings the orchestration, the timing, the infinite resources of the universe. Together, you create reality. Not you alone struggling and striving. Not God alone while you passively wait. Partnership, co-creation. Your inner state, meeting divine power, and producing tangible results in your physical experience. When you truly understand this, when you feel it in your spirit, the entire game changes because you're no longer operating from limitation. You're operating from infinite possibility. And this brings us to something that will completely transform how you view every difficulty you've ever faced. Every problem you've encountered was never punishment for something you did wrong. It was never evidence that you're cursed or forgotten or on the wrong path. Every problem was a portal, a doorway designed to lead you deeper into awareness of the one who solves all things. Think about it. When everything is going smoothly, when life feels easy and comfortable, you rarely turn to divine intelligence. You handle it yourself. But when you hit a wall, when you face something beyond your capacity, that's when you're pushed through the portal into deeper trust, greater awareness, stronger faith. Every worry you've carried was a teacher showing you where you still believed you were alone, where you hadn't yet remembered your divine partnership. Every fear was an invitation to remember your true strength, not your human strength that fails under pressure, but the strength that comes from being connected to infinite power. Every moment of surrender was a resurrection, a death of the false self that thought it had to control everything, and a rebirth of the true self that knows it's held by something greater. This is why Florence Scovel Shinn taught that there are no accidents in divine order, only appointments. What looked like disaster was actually direction. What felt like failure was actually formation. Behind the scenes of every challenge, there's been an intelligence using that very challenge to develop capacities in you that couldn't be developed any other way. The difficulties weren't interrupting your journey. They were essential parts of it, shaping you into someone capable of holding the blessing that's been prepared for you. The transformation happens when you stop resisting problems and start recognizing them for what they are: portals, doorways, invitations to go deeper, to trust more fully, to surrender more completely. Every time you walk through one of these portals, instead of running from it, you emerge stronger, wiser, more aligned with your divine nature. The impact of this perspective shift is immeasurable because you stop being a victim of circumstances and become a student of divine curriculum. Now I want to reveal something even more powerful about how this understanding positions you to receive everything that's been prepared for your life. Comment: problems are portals. If this reframe is shifting how you see your past challenges. There's a fundamental shift in identity that happens when you truly awaken to who you are. You stop treating peace as something you visit occasionally when circumstances allow it. You recognize that you are peace. Peace isn't a destination you arrive at after everything works out. It's your essential nature, always present beneath the noise of worry and fear. You stop waiting for love to find you, to be given to you, to finally show up in your life. You realize you are love. The love you've been seeking outside yourself has been flowing from within you all along. And miracles. You stop seeking them like they're rare occurrences that only happen to special people. You become the atmosphere through which miracles occur. This is what it means to live from your true nature instead of from your circumstances. When you recognize yourself as the embodiment of peace, love, and divine order, nothing external can shake you anymore. Storms can rage around you, but you remain still at the center. Circumstances can shift and change, but your inner state remains anchored in truth. This isn't arrogance or spiritual bypassing. This is remembering what you've always been beneath the layers of conditioning and fear. You are not a human being trying to become spiritual. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. And the more you remember this, the more your human experience reflects your spiritual reality. The transformation that occurs when you live from this awareness is complete. Your decisions come from a different place. Your reactions shift. Your presence begins affecting rooms before you even speak. People sense something in you they can't name, but are drawn to. It's the frequency of someone who knows who they are, who's no longer pretending to be small, who stopped apologizing for their divine connection. Behind the scenes of your daily interactions, you're broadcasting a signal of wholeness that touches everyone you encounter. And now we come to the ultimate instruction, the final command that dissolves all striving and brings you into the eternal now. Be still. Not eventually, not when everything is perfect, but right now in the middle of whatever you're experiencing. Let your heart return to peace. Not force it there, not manufacture it through techniques, but let it return to its natural state. Know, not think, not hope, not try to believe, but know truly and deeply that the one who holds the universe together, who maintains the orbit of planets and the rhythm of seasons, that same intelligence holds you too. You are safe, not because nothing bad can ever happen, but because you're held by something greater than any circumstance. You are seen. Every tear, every struggle, every moment of doubt, it's all been witnessed with infinite compassion. You are guided. Even when the path makes no sense, especially when you can't see where you're going, divine intelligence is directing your steps. You are free. Free from the need to control outcomes. Free from the burden of figuring everything out. Free from the illusion that you're doing this alone. In the language of eternity, beyond time and space, beyond worry and fear, there are only 3 words that matter. 3 words that end all struggle, all doubt, all questioning. 3 words that declare completion before evidence appears. It is done. Not, it will be done if you do everything right. Not, it might be done someday. It is done. Present tense, complete, finished. And not just for a moment, not temporarily, but forever. The victory isn't coming. It already exists in the eternal now. Now I want you to understand how to carry this truth forward, how to walk in this completed state even as your daily life continues. Type, "It is done," in the comments if these words are landing in your spirit as absolute truth. If you're still here with me right now, if you've journeyed through this entire message, that's not coincidence. Something in you resonated with these truths because you're ready for them. You're ready to stop worrying and start trusting at a level you haven't experienced before. And I'm grateful you allowed me to speak into your journey today. If this content serves you, if these conversations about faith and divine order and living from trust instead of fear are what you need more of in your life, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. This is what we do here. We explore the spiritual principles that actually transform reality, not just theory, but practical wisdom you can apply immediately. Every video is designed to shift your consciousness, to remind you of truths you've forgotten, to help you walk in the authority that's already yours. And if you made it all the way to the end, leave a comment saying, "It is done," so I know you received this message in full. I read the comments, and there's something powerful about declaring those words publicly, about letting the universe and this community witness your shift from worry to trust. Hit that like button if this resonated with your spirit, if something inside you said, "Yes, this is what I needed to hear today." Your like helps this message reach others who are standing in that hallway between prayer and proof, who need to be reminded that they're not alone. And listen, There's another video right here that goes even deeper into how your inner dialogue creates your outer reality. It's the perfect next step for where you are right now. Click it and continue with me over there. Let's keep this transformation moving. Until then, remember, you are held, you are guided, and it is already done.